Everyone thinks water this clear only lives somewhere tropical and far away. The Caribbean, Fiji, a resort you fly to and save all year for. But here is what nobody tells you. The largest concentration of freshwater springs on the planet is not on some distant island. It is in Florida. This one state sits on around 1,000 natural springs, 33 of them so powerful they are called first magnitude, more than any other state and more than any entire country on Earth can claim. They bubble up out of the limestone at a constant 72 degrees every day of the year, clearer than a swimming pool. And almost everyone is a short drive from somewhere you have already been. No passport, no plane, just Florida. So today, 11 crystal clear springs in Florida you will not believe are real. Water so clear, it barely looks like water at all. Let's begin. Number 11. Ichetucknee Springs. We start in the shaded forests of North Florida on a river so clear the boats and tubes look like they are floating on air. The Ichetucknee is a spring-fed river that runs 6 miles through hammocks and wetlands before it joins the Santa Fe. And the head spring is so pristine it was declared a National Natural Landmark back in 1972. But the reason generations of Floridians have come here is one of the simplest pleasures in the state. You climb onto an inner tube, lean back, and let the gentle current carry you slowly downstream through the crystal water, under a canopy of oaks and cypress, past turtles on logs and fish hanging in the shallows. The whole river is a protected state park with a daily limit on tubers, which is exactly why the water has stayed so clean. It is so transparent it feels less like floating on a river and more like drifting through liquid glass, every blade of eelgrass on the bottom perfectly visible below you. Next, the spring many people call the single most beautiful in the state. Number 10. Rainbow Springs. A little southwest of Ocala, near the town of Dunedin, is a spring so lovely that among Florida's 33 first magnitude springs, it is the one people most often single out as the most beautiful of them all. Rainbow Springs is the 4th largest spring in Florida, forming the crystalline headwaters of the Rainbow River, which has drawn swimmers since it opened as a private attraction in the 1930s. What makes it special is the combination of the water and what people built around it. From those old attraction days, the park still has terraced gardens and, remarkably, man-made waterfalls tumbling down the slopes. A genuinely strange sight in Pancake Flat, Florida. But the star is always the water itself, a wide, clear, blue-green swimming hole that locals call Florida's natural swimming pool. So still and transparent that schools of fish seem to drift over the pale, sandy bottom in midair, glowing that soft turquoise only a first magnitude spring can produce. Next, a first magnitude spring you can walk right into off a sandy beach. Quick pause before number 9. If these springs are going on your list, take a second to subscribe. It is free and it helps the channel more than you know. Okay, back to the water. Number 9. Alexander Springs. Deep in the Ocala National Forest sits one of the most welcoming springs in all of Florida. Alexander Springs is one of Florida's 33 first magnitude springs, which means it pushes out at least 100 cubic feet of water every second. And yet, unlike a lot of powerful springs, it is astonishingly easy and gentle to enjoy. There is a sandy beach that slopes softly into the water, no cliffs, and no strong current at the swimming area, just clear 72 degrees Fahrenheit water over a pale sandy bottom, which makes it a favorite for families, snorkelers, and first-time divers. Ancient palms and hardwoods crowd right up to the water's edge, giving the whole place the feel of a primeval jungle lagoon. You walk in from the beach as if stepping into the ocean, except the water is fresh and clear as glass, and within a few steps you are floating over a wide blue basin, watching the sand shimmer where the spring pushes up from deep below. Next, the newest jewel in the entire state park system. Number 8. Gilchrist Blue Springs. Near the town of High Springs along the Santa Fe River is the most recent addition to Florida's state parks, a spring so vividly colored it practically named itself. Gilchrist Blue became a state park only in 2017, and it protects not just one spring but a whole little family of them, with names like Little Blue, Naked Spring, and Johnson Spring scattered along a forest trail. The main spring pours out around 44 million gallons of water a day, rising through a basin about 25 feet deep and running a quarter mile down a glowing spring run to the tea-colored Santa Fe River. No passport, no plane, just Florida. One of the loveliest sights is where the two waters meet, the brilliant clear blue of the spring flowing directly into the dark tea brown of the river. And along the nature trail stands a giant cypress estimated at 350 years old, older than the country itself. Next, a spring you reach by climbing down into the earth. Number 7. Devil's Den. Near the town of Williston, hidden beneath the flat Florida farmland, is a spring you reach by climbing down into the earth. Devil's Den is what geologists call a karst window, a spot where the roof of an underground cavern collapsed long ago and opened a hole to the sky, revealing a secret pool of spring water inside the cave below. You walk down a rugged stone staircase into the ground, and there it is, a still aquamarine pool glowing in the dim light, a single shaft of daylight falling through the opening far above. And this water is old in a way that is hard to fathom. The walls of the cavern are lined with fossil beds from the Pleistocene, holding the remains of mastodons and giant ground sloths alongside evidence of early humans who came here more than 10,000 years ago. The water sits at a constant 72 degrees and is so clear you can see the entire length of the cavern, which is why it has become a beloved cave diving and snorkeling site. In winter, when the cold air meets the warm water, the surface steams inside the cave. Next, a spring, where you can walk underwater with wild manatees. Number 6. Homosassa Springs. On Florida's Nature Coast north of Tampa is a first-magnitude spring where you can do something almost no other place on Earth allows. You can walk underwater at the Ellie Schiller Homosassa Springs Wildlife State Park. Engineers built a floating structure called the Fishbowl, an underwater observatory that sits right down in the main spring. So you descend below the surface, look out through the windows, and find yourself face-to-face with whatever is swimming past. And a great deal swims past because the Gulf is only about 9 miles away. So both freshwater and saltwater fish gather here by the thousands, along with the star attraction, the West Indian manatee. The park doubles as a rehabilitation center for injured and orphaned manatees, which means, unlike almost anywhere else, you can count on seeing these gentle giants up close no matter the season, rain or shine, summer or winter. Next, the spring where the glass-bottom boat itself was invented. Number 5. Silver Springs. Near Ocala sits one of the largest springs in America and one of the most historically important. Silver Springs has been famous for its clarity for so long that it is where the glass-bottom boat was invented back in the 1870s. That makes it one of Florida's very first tourist attractions, drawing visitors for 150 years to peer down into the depths without getting wet. No passport, no plane, just Florida. The water here is so transparent and so photogenic that Hollywood came calling, filming dozens of movies and the classic underwater television series Sea Hunt in these springs. And in one of the strangest twists in the state, a troop of wild rhesus monkeys lives along the river, descendants of animals brought in for an attraction in the 1930s, still swinging through the trees above the water. Beneath the boats, the main spring pours up out of deep limestone caverns so clear the boat looks like it is floating on nothing but air. Next, one of the largest and deepest freshwater springs on the entire planet. Number 4. Wakulla Springs. Just south of Tallahassee in the Edward Ball Wakulla Springs State Park, bubbles up one of the largest and deepest freshwater springs in the entire world. This is old primeval Florida, where the spring feeds a jungle-lined river so lush that Hollywood used it again and again to stand in for the African jungle. 6 different Tarzan movies were filmed here in the 1930s and 40s, and the original creature from the Black Lagoon rose out of these very waters. Today you can take a riverboat tour, a tradition since 1875, down a river lined with ancient cypress and Spanish moss, past alligators, wading birds, and, in cooler months, manatees. The spring is so deep and ancient that mastodon bones have been pulled from its basin, and its underwater cave system has been mapped for thousands of feet. Next, the most beautiful gathering of clear water and wildlife in the whole state. Number 3. Three Sisters Springs. In Crystal River on Florida's Gulf Coast is a cluster of springs so impossibly blue that aerial photos of them look digitally painted. But the color is real, and in winter, so is the spectacle that makes Three Sisters famous around the world. When the Gulf turns cold, hundreds upon hundreds of wild manatees crowd into the warm, 72 degrees Fahrenheit spring water to survive, packing the glowing turquoise coves so densely that from above the water seems to be paved with them. No passport, no plane, just Florida. This is part of the Crystal River National Wildlife Refuge, And the rules here are strict and gentle. You observe passively, you never chase or touch, and that protection is exactly why the manatees keep coming back and the water stays pristine. It is one of the greatest wildlife gatherings in North America, and it happens in water clear enough to read a book through. Winter steam rising off the surface as the slow gray shapes drift nose to tail below. Next, the spring where one of the great conservation stories in America unfolded. Number 2, Blue Spring. In Orange City, just north of Orlando, along the St. Johns River, lies the single most important warm water refuge for manatees in this part of the state. And its numbers tell a story of hope. Back in 1970, before the park was even established, researchers could find only 14 manatees in the entire spring run. Today, on the coldest winter mornings, that same run fills with many hundreds of them. One of the great conservation success stories in America, all drawn to the constant 72 degrees Fahrenheit. In the warmer months, when the manatees return to the river, the run reopens for swimming and snorkeling. The water a clear, deep, dreamlike blue. On a cold January morning, mist rising off the surface, you can stand on the boardwalk and look down a run packed with hundreds of manatees nose to tail, in a spring that once held only 14. Next, the spring with the mermaids. Number 1, Wachee Springs. About an hour north of Tampa is a first-magnitude spring so clear, so deep, and so magical that for nearly 80 years it has been home to the most wonderfully improbable attraction in America. Wachee is a spring where mermaids perform underwater, live, and have done so continuously since October of 1947. Here is how it began. A former Navy man named Newton Perry, who had trained frogmen to swim underwater during the war, invented a way to breathe from a free-flowing air hose hidden out of sight, so a swimmer could stay under and appear to breathe naturally. He carved a theater right into the limestone, 16 feet below the surface, with thick glass windows, and trained young women to perform ballet in the crystal-clear water while the audience watched from below. It became a sensation, and it never stopped. To this day, in an underwater theater seating hundreds, you watch real performers glide and spin through water, so transparent it disappears. And the spring itself is a marvel beyond the show. The deepest known freshwater cave system in the entire United States, explored past 400 feet without anyone ever reaching the bottom. The tiny town around it was once called the City of Live Mermaids, with a population under 15 and at one point a former mermaid for a mayor. No passport, no plane, just Florida. That is number 1. We started with a lie we all tell ourselves. That water this clear was something you had to leave the country to find. A passport, a long flight, an island on the far side of the world. And one spring at a time, that lie fell apart. The manatees were in Crystal River in Orange City. The prehistoric cave was near Williston. Hollywood's African jungle was south of Tallahassee, and the mermaids were an hour from Tampa, right where they have always been. Around 1,000 springs, 33 of them first magnitude. All 72 degrees, all clearer than glass, all bubbling up out of the ground in a single state. No passport, no plane. Just Florida, hiding the largest collection of crystal-clear springs on the planet in plain sight. So, if this showed you even one spring you have to see, do me a favor, hit that like button and subscribe so you never miss the next one. The next one is right there on the card. Go find the clearest water of your life in your own backyard.